Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Longstone Walking Tours. I'm Phil, and firstly I'd like to thank you for all your views and your comments and your likes and your retweets. And today, being so hot and sunny in sweltering Dublin, I thought I'd bring you down to the beach. So I've walked down the Dodder and I'm now on Sandymount, and behind me is the famous Martello Tower. There was 50 of them built around the coast of Ireland as a defence against a Napoleonic invasion fleet. There's 28 in the Dublin area, 16 of them are on the south side. The one behind me now is in Sandymount. This was special in that it also had accommodation for troops and supplies. The original Martello towers were built in Corsica, where they were known as Martello towers, and the British realised how hard they were to destroy, so they imitated them, which is a very sincere form of flattery. They were 12 to 14 metres wide and extremely well built, two-storey. And the one behind me was built in 1804, but as you can tell by the door, the original doors were not on street level, they were up about 5 metres and they were accessed by a ladder. This was another idea of protection. And I'm going to read you out a quote from a sailor now who was asked how useful they were. And what this sailor said was, "Oh, they're devilly use I can think of, but to please Mr. Wyndham, the Secretary of War, and to puzzle posterity." So I thought that was a fabulous remark. This one ended up being used by the tramway company, then it was a restaurant, and now it's a private residence. But I just thought I'd fill you in on that information. Now folks, I moved down the beach a bit, and behind me you'll see the iconic red and white chimneys of Poolbeg Generating Station. The station itself has been decommissioned, but after a long battle we've decided to leave the chimneys there. They would welcome many people home because you can see them whether you're flying into Dublin or whether you're taking the boat in. Dublin itself has a long history, and I say it was the Liffey in particular that brought people into it. But although the Vikings were able to get in their long ships into 800 mil of water, the larger ships were not able to get in because the Liffey was tidal. This problem was solved late in the 18th century by none other than the famous Captain William Bligh. Not only did he lose his ship the Bounty, but he made it back home to London. He was an expert on tides and channels. So he worked out a system to build the walls, so when the tide was going out on the Liffey, it was able to automatically take all the sediment with it. This was then scoured out and dumped on the north side of Dublin Bay, which is how Bull Island was formed. We're due to have new generating stations built, but as I say, the first one would have been the Pigeon House Road, named after a man called Pigeon who had a house there. So we moved through from the coal to the oil, and then we're going to start burning rubbish. Straight ahead of you now folks, you'll see the lovely statue, and that was unveiled by the Mexican President Vicente Fox back in 2002. It's a gift from the Mexican people to the Irish people. It looks great on a sunny day, so let's hope it brings us more sunshine. Now folks, here we are out in Sandy Cove in Martello Tower number 11. This was the famous place where James Joyce stayed. Before his emigration to the continent, he did a bit of couch surfing with different friends, and his friend Oliver St. John Gogarty, who was to become a surgeon, invited him to stay out here. However, his stay was cut short because there was another lodger at the time, and whether it was PTSD or the DTs, we don't know, but he had a ferocious dream about a Black Panther. There was a revolver produced and shots were fired, so this scared poor old James, and he left early. Right now folks, as I mentioned previously, these towers were built in case of a Napoleonic invasion, and they have a military purpose. So I'm standing here and there's a hole below me, and there's also holes on this side. This would be in case of attack. You could fire your rifles out, or you could obviously pour something unpleasant and nasty down upon the heads of the invaders. The words machiolation and murder hole spring to mind. I don't think the boys were too tall back in those days. Okay, folks, is the famous Black Panther. Now, there was in reality, it was the dreams of Trench that caused him to fire the revolver. But Joyce also mentions it in the book Ulysses. Somebody had a bad dream, there was shots fired. You can understand why he was scared. Well, both of them were scared. The fella who was dreaming about this creature, and then Joyce himself after the shots were fired.